Good morning, everybody. I'm Mark Colazzo on behalf of the Fishtown District and our executive staff. I want to welcome you to yet another of our, what we know will be informative virtual stakeholders meetings. What we've been trying to do, and I think we've been successful at, is during this crisis, bring to you information, people, resources on how to get through it, how to stay on top of the ever-changing regulations, and certainly now with construction being opened up to some degree, we know that especially in our area, that is a big point of concern of how to proceed, what regulations are going to be enforced, et cetera. So we're lucky today to be joined by Commissioner David Perry from License and Inspection, as well as Elizabeth Baldwin. Good morning. And we have Michael Shorr, and I'm going to try to get this right. It's the Deputy Regional Director for the Southeast Region of the Department of Community and of DCED. I always stumble with that. Welcome, Michael. And Michael, we're going to start with you to give us a Commonwealth perspective of what's happening.
Yeah, so very briefly, I'm sure most of you are aware of this, but a couple weeks ago on the 23rd, the governor issued guidance to re-permit construction to begin. Originally, that was going to be on May 8th, but that was moved to May 1st. So there's really two sort of relevant documents to that. One is an order from the Secretary of Health, and that's just sort of directing sort of general public health and safety measures for businesses that are able to continue in-person operations. So I would highly suggest reviewing that. That details the health and safety protocols that are necessary, cleaning, highly touched surfaces and all of that. I think most of us are familiar with a lot of that. And it also goes through, the scenarios if there is a positive COVID case identified and how to handle all that. A lot of that guidance has been out, but has been sort of fine-tuned. And the second document they put out was specifically for businesses in the construction industry that were permitted to continue. And that has some more detailed safety protocols specific to that trade. So it'll talk about tools and cleaning tools, and amount of people in an enclosed space. And then I think the important part here is that as detailed as the guidance is, it does stress that local political units can sort of impose more stringent requirements. And that folks should follow those more stringent requirements where they do exist on a local level. So I'm happy to take questions at the end, but I think it probably makes sense to pass it to David and let him explain how the city is handling those matters and what more stringent requirements they do have in place and how the two will be working together. And again, also happy to answer questions and talk a little about enforcement, which will also somewhat fall with the city. And as you've seen, the law enforcement also has the ability to, process those types of complaints and follow up with businesses in, whatever way they see fit, whether it's citing or warnings or anything else.
Thank you, Mike. And just for everybody that's on the call, our protocol is we're going to let our presenters go through their presentations. We're going to keep everybody's mics muted except for the speakers. And then at the end, we'll open it up for questions from everybody. So with that, thank you again, Mike, and we're going to turn it over to Commissioner and Beth. Take it away.
All right, thanks a lot, Mark. We appreciate the invite today. We're going to bring up a PowerPoint and go through it. I'm going to present the first couple of slides and then turn it over to Elizabeth to finish up. So let's go to the next slide, Betsy.
All right, there we go.
All right, so as you heard, there was a governor's order on April the 23rd dealing with the restart of construction activities in the Commonwealth. That was then followed up on April the 29th with a mayoral order. And what I'm trying to do with our presentation here is to combine the two and show you what the actual impact of the is to construction in the city of Philadelphia. So the main thing to be aware of is that through the local order, construction was basically segmented into two different categories. So the first category deals with construction projects in which the permits were issued on or before March 20th. And those were the projects that were in the ground or had permits paid for by the applicant prior to the shutdown. So on those projects, all those projects can restart or proceed in the construction with just a few minor exceptions. So locally, we put in some minor exceptions to allowing the restart of all the pre-existing construction projects. What we're not allowing in this point in time is demolition of attached structures. So in other words, no demolition of row houses or twins. We're not allowing underpinning work to occur, and we're not allowing interior work in occupied residential buildings. And the whole point of those three restrictions is that we are trying to, in a dense urban environment, have some additional controls over the construction that can occur in those areas. As you can imagine, if you're living on a row house block, having someone underpin the property next door, it's going to be highly invasive to your environment at this point in time. We want to be able to protect folks that are sheltering in place, that may be recovering from an illness, that don't have the means at their disposal at this time to hire professionals, and otherwise are not inclined to interact with the contractor. So those provisions, the exceptions, the point is to try to keep a separation between active construction sites and folks that are residential folks that are trying to shelter in place, trying to avoid the personal interactions. So no interior work in occupied residential buildings. What you are allowed to do, if you're a landlord and you need to prepare an apartment for the next tenant that's coming in, we are allowing that work to occur. Painting, replacement of the rugs, some very minor repair work. So we are allowing that type of activity to occur within an apartment building. We also, if you're doing exterior work to a residential property, for instance, some of you folks may want to put in a swimming pool since a lot of vacation plans are on hold. We would allow that type of activity. So exterior work's allowed. The only interior work is to prepare a dwelling unit for the next tenant. So the other big bucket of projects out there are (7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, except again for emergency work, healthcare, and critical infrastructure. We do anticipate lifting that restriction very shortly, definitely within the next week or so, for all projects except for 1 and 2 family work. What we found after putting that restriction in place is that for large commercial projects, they're required to have social distancing. And in order to do that, they're going to be needing to do shift work. So in order to accommodate shift work, we need to be a little more lenient with the work hours. So we're going to allow the commercial projects to resume normal work hours and also do Saturday work, but we are keeping the restriction on what we're calling the curfew on 1 and 2 family work. Again, so that we can kind of protect the peace and tranquility and privacy in the dense row house areas that are make up for a large part of Philadelphia. And you can imagine if you're a training course and obtain a certification. As of right now, we have 2 approved online training courses. We expect to add more. We're requiring the job sites to post a certificate at the job site, so it's known who is responsible for hygiene and social distancing and the health concerns on a particular project. So that posting should occur next to the building permit. We do have penalties for folks that are working on the weekends that shouldn't be working on the weekends, or otherwise violating the protocols for hygiene and social distancing. We can issue a $2,000 a day or occurrence fine. We will suspend contractors' licenses, and we will issue stop work orders. So those are the penalties that are in place. Everyone needs to take the hygiene issues very, very seriously. And we need to keep this under control. So we got authority to increase the fines and impose them immediately when we find infractions. Next slide, please. Okay, so other information I wanted to get out there to this group about L&I and what we're doing. So just to give you an idea, right before the pandemic hit and the shutdown occurred, we switched over to an online permitting and inspection code enforcement system, which was a godsend. It's allowed us to operate, and we have virtually all of our services are available now that we've managed to maintain. Our permit volume is running about 40% of normal, which we think is actually pretty good, figuring that folks had very little time to acclimate to an online permitting system. There's a lot of uncertainty about projects and their financing, but we are issuing about 40% of our normal permit volume. We put into place a construction inspection interactive voice response system. On the screen is the phone number to call. So if you're a active construction site and you need to schedule an inspection, call that number. You don't need now to track down a building inspector or call a district office. You call that interactive voice response message, and you can set up your construction inspections. Our clean and seal unit is active. We are focusing that unit on police department referrals. We get referrals from the police department revolving around drug activity. So we're trying to get in there quickly and seal up those properties. So our clean and seal unit is active. Our demolition unit is active. There's imminently dangerous, unsafe buildings that we need to take down. We continue to do those demolitions. On the CLIP side of things, CLIP is still doing graffiti removal. They are using a lot of their staff for food, giving out food, distributing food citywide, but they are maintaining their graffiti removal services. Online, we've put up the certificate of rental suitability. If you're a landlord or a new tenant, the landlord's required to download one of those certificates and provide it to each new tenant. Our licensing services continue to operate. Atlas, which is our the city's site contains all information about properties, particularly the zoning and building permits that are issued. That has been updated and is functioning. So if you need to check on status of permits, you can use Atlas. Our permit backlog right before the shutdown occurred, Elizabeth was able to set up her examination staff to do plan reviews at home. They have completely eliminated the entire paper backlog that we had prior to the shutdown notice, so we have no backlog. If you're a builder, developer out there, now's the perfect time to submit a set of plans, because we're sitting here waiting for jobs to come in. We can get to them right away. We have no backlog, so we have disabled temporarily our accelerated review program because it's not necessary. So we are meeting our service level agreements through normal processing, so there's no need to pay additional funds for accelerated plan reviews. The MSB reopening, we do not have a date yet for when MSB is going to reopen. It's obviously a complex situation dealing with both the elevator capacity and with having to get the public through that space. There are folks working on that in public property and in the Office of Emergency Management, but we do not have a firm date. We are allowing folks into the concourse by appointment to pick up plans, paper plans that were associated with approved permits prior to the shutdown. So we're allowing a few people in at a time. Elizabeth will get into the details about how to set up an appointment. I think what will happen when we reopen is that we will be able to, I think, go largely over to an appointment-based system in L&I. So if you're a builder or someone else that needs to get information rather than just coming in and trying your luck at waiting in line, you'll be able to pre-schedule an appointment with L&I, and we'll be able to handle people much more efficiently in that mode through appointments rather than just dealing with the particular ups and downs of the workflow on any given day. Our website is active. We continue to put FAQs, blog posts up. There's a question portal if folks are involved in construction and need to know whether their project is allowed to continue or what the city's requirements are. Use that question portal that we have so that it gets in the right hands so you can get a quick answer. Elizabeth has continued to run webinars to educate folks on how to use our Eclipse system. She's been very active in that regard, and that's open to a full range of our stakeholders out there, whether you're community groups, whether you're business and district contractors. We want folks to become acclimated on how to use that system, and that's really the future of L&I. One minor bit of bad news that I got to report is because the city's revenues have been impacted, as you can imagine, by the pandemic. We're required, we have to put a small fee increase for our permits and licensing. It's going to be about 5%. We're preparing the regulation now. It'll go into effect on July 1st. And all we're doing is adjusting the fees for inflation. Last time we did a major fee increase was back in 2017. So the inflation rate's about 5%, and that's what we anticipate our fee increase to be. So that's coming on July 1st. With that, that's my material. I'm going to pass this on to Elizabeth to continue with the rest of the slides.
Hey, thank you, Commissioner. I'm just going to expand a little bit on what the Commissioner has already touched on. As far as our website, phil.gov/LI, this is critical during this time. There's a lot of information. There's always a lot of information on the website, but right now, this is the primary way that we can communicate with you. And there's lots of information on here. And I personally spend a lot of time just directing people to the website. So I just want to show you a couple of important areas. So on the main page, phil.gov/LI, if you scroll down about 2/3 of the page, there's two areas, announcements and posts, and that's where you'll find all of the information that is relevant to operations during the shutdown. So for instance, announcements, you'll see a few things. One is resources to help you navigate L&I processes during the shutdown. And you'll see a variety of portals available to you depending on the issue. Now, we've really tried to divide and conquer. We're receiving a great deal of inquiries related to construction, related to accessing paper applications, city services being offered, and of course, Eclipse. So we've actually broken it out, and these portals are important because they're designed to ensure that the appropriate unit gets the question as quickly as possible so we can resolve it. Rather than sending everything 311, we're trying to send things directly to the source. So it is important to rely on this matrix. And there's a couple of them that are relevant. Questions on COVID-19, construction requirements and restrictions. There's a specific form. There are FAQs on the website that I'll show you, but there's also a specific form that you can use. And there is a person who mans this mailbox and provides complete information. There's another that's very popular these days, which is accessing a paper application. So obviously we launched our online system just as the building was shutting down. And we have a lot of paper applications still in our shop, and folks need to know how to access them for a variety of reasons. So there's a form just for that reason. And then this list isn't complete, but the first thing that you should do if you have a question for L&I is rely on this form. And when in doubt, I would use the online 311 form. I know that 311 is backlogged. They're receiving a lot of requests right now through their call center. So I wouldn't recommend calling 311, but the online form eventually makes its way to L&I. So they sort it out and we get it within a day. Okay, and then also the commissioner mentioned the Eclipse training sessions that we're offering. We are offering 3 sessions a week. We've been offering these since early March. One is a general information session, one's related to electronic plans, and one's related to zoning. So if you're interested in registering for one of these sessions, then you can register here under announcements. Okay, then we also have blog posts, and there's a lot of information under blog posts as well. So I showed you the announcements where it has the matrix of help links. The blog post actually explains things in great detail, step by step. In addition, there's requirements for resuming construction activity in Philadelphia. These are the requirements that the commissioner just reviewed for what's permitted, what you need to do in advance, and also what requirements that you must observe during construction. All of that information is in the post. And then we have FAQs. If you have a question about your particular project, there's a good chance that somebody's already asked that question. So I would refer to these FAQs first, and if you don't see the answer that you need, then submit an inquiry. Okay, available services. Again, all permit and license applications are available. They may be submitted through the online portal. So we're only accepting applications electronically right now. Our staff is working remotely. So they are doing electronic reviews at this point and reviewing your electronic license applications. The only exception is make safe permits. So if there is actually a structural violation on a property, you cannot file your application online. Instead, we have a dedicated examiner. In that matrix that I originally showed you, there is a make safe appointment form. You can make an appointment and an examiner will meet you out at our 15th and Cecil B. Moore office to review your application. Now, we can only speak for L&I services. L&I was fortunately in a pretty good position to go remote. Other departments, it was a little bit more challenging, especially if permits aren't online. So I think for the most part, other departments are now reviewing plans electronically that are received through Eclipse, but not all permit services are available. So for instance, PWD can only issue water discontinuance permits for emergency situations because that's an in-person function. So L&I will still continue with our review, but if we're missing a departmental approval or permit, then we'll just put a hold on your permit, and unfortunately you can't proceed until that's completed, but at least you've gotten through the review process. And as the commissioner mentioned, accelerated applications are temporarily suspended. We are reviewing all permit applications within the accelerated timeframe of 10 business days during standard review time, during standard operating hours. And all licenses must be renewed through the online portal. We did not extend any licenses with the exception of non-permanent food licenses because they require a health department inspection prior to renewal. Okay, so if you actually are making application, there are some resources available to you. Again, Eclipse is brand new, as at least the permitting piece. There is a lot of instructional videos and guides and FAQs available for your use. So if you're trying to make application, you get stuck, you definitely want to refer to these videos. And as I already mentioned, there's the information sessions that we offer weekly. Okay, paper applications. We do receive a lot of questions on paper applications, and we've developed processes in place to allow you to continue with the permit process, even though you filed on paper. It's not pretty, so there's a lot of steps to it. And the first step is gaining access to your paper application. And there's a specific link that I already showed you. There's multiple reasons why you would need access to your paper application. You might have to pay your permit invoice. In fact, if you're trying to obtain your permit right now, you must pay your permit invoice online. Or if there's a reinspection fee associated with your permit, you also have to pay it online. If you submit it on paper and additional information was requested, then you can essentially convert your paper application to an electronic application, and you need access to do that. If you're amending a permit or appealing a refusal generated after March 15th, then you would also need access to your legacy permit. So you might have to submit a separate request for each action because the system wasn't intended to do this. We never intended to expose permits filed on paper to you through your online portal, but it became a necessity. So we actually have to adapt each application a little bit differently depending on what you're doing. So you may see your permit through your online portal, but you can't pay your fees or you can't amend your permit. If that's the case, just submit that request that I pointed out and we'll figure it out. So to obtain a paper approval, there are 2 steps. The first thing, you must pay your invoice online, and then you have to make an appointment to pick up plans. We're only allowing, we have appointments set up every 10 minutes, and it's basically 1 person at a time. The building's still closed to the public, and people are only permitted to enter for this purpose. So if you have your permit, but not your approved plans, you are not permitted to start work. By code, you are required to have your approved plans on site, so just keep that in mind. You may have paid for your permit, you have your permit in hand, but if there are approved plans, you still need to pick them up. Okay, appeals. L&I manages BBS, the Plumbing Advisory Board, and the L&I Review Board. We are actually restarting Board of Building Standards and PBA hearings this month. If anybody had a hearing that was canceled for March, you will be hearing from us very shortly. The L&I Review Board hearings have been available for emergencies only, and there is a form on the website to request an emergency hearing. We do not manage the Zoning Board of Adjustment. That's managed by Planning and Development, but I know that they've been having a lot of conversations around their options for virtual hearings. There's an emergency city regulation that suspended all appeal periods indefinitely, so you may not be able to submit your appeal within the 30-day window, but that's okay because those periods have been suspended. And you can actually appeal a permit denial if the refusal was issued after March 15th through our online portal. Okay, as the commissioner already mentioned, you can call our automated phone system to schedule permit inspections. And if you need to contact your district inspector to arrange for a reinspection related to a violation, then you should contact that office. The contact information is on the violation itself, but you can also find it at phila.gov/LI contact us. Okay, and finally, permit extensions. Regulations were just posted 2 days ago to extend permits. So all active construction permits have been extended by 6 months. This excludes make safe, rough-in, and operations permits. All zoning permits that were issued by right on or after March 16th, or that were active on March 16th, I'm sorry, they are extended by 6 months as well. Permits that were issued by variance or special exception fall under the purview of the Zoning Board of Adjustment. There's a separate regulation that they are evaluating presently that would do the same thing. So if you had an active permit application in with L&I and you have to submit additional information or pick up your permit, that has also been extended by 180 days, so you have time to do that. And we do have system generated expiration dates. They haven't been updated yet, so you might still receive notices of expiration until we update those later this month, but you can just disregard them. Okay. And that is all the information.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thanks, Commissioner. Thanks, Michael. We're going to start the questions, and I actually have one from one of my colleagues, and any one of you can take this one. When do you think L&I will allow a solely commercial restaurant space that has no residential be allowed to move forward with construction permits?
All right, so if the permit was already issued, if it was prior to March 20th, they can move into construction now. If it's after March 20th, we don't have a timeline yet for when those projects will be allowed to go into construction. There are discussions ongoing with the city solicitor's office about separating out the post-March 20th projects that have no zoning implications. And I'm hoping that within the next week or two, we can also allow those projects to go into construction. So, yeah, we're in a bind here with the post March 20th construction projects, and we're trying our best to figure out how to free up as many of those as possible. I don't have a timeline. I unfortunately can't give you a date yet, but I can tell you that the situation is known and it's being worked on.
Thanks, Commissioner. Now we'll open it up. If you have a question, unmute yourself or raise your hand, and Randy will unmute you.
Good morning. I have a question.
Hi, Denise.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Okay, so we're not having any problems with the online permit applications and invoicing. What I'm having a problem with is renewing a contractor license that expired on March 31st. We've submitted, we've uploaded all the documents, we've emailed, we've called, we can't get an answer. And I know that someone has to review the required tax clearance and insurance documents. So that kind of puts us at a standstill.
So do you want to send, well, so they actually are reviewing contractor licenses, and they should within 3 business days. If yours has not been reviewed, then there is something going on. If you want to actually send your license number to me in the chat directly, I can look it up.
Okay, that would be great. I really appreciate it.
Perfect. Thanks, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
Thanks, Denise. Any other questions? Okay. I'm going to wait one more minute because I know the commissioner has to go at 11 o'clock call. So before we move forward, is anybody else with anything, either put it through a chat or unmute yourself and ask the question. Great. Before we conclude the call, sometimes I know our elected officials or their representatives are on the call. So is there anyone, is Senator Farnese or anyone from his office on, would like to give a brief update or make any comments? Okay. Is Representative Isaacson or Samantha Pearson on the call? Do we have any updates or comments?
Hi, this is Samantha Pearson. Thank you so much
Sam.
for allowing us to be a part of the call this morning. There's no formal updates right now. Obviously, our office is always open if there's any specific questions or concerns. Obviously, we don't have anything specific with construction right now. But if anyone is having any issues or knows anyone who's having issues with PUA or any of the loan programs, we're happy to help in that way.
Thanks, Sam. Anyone or any of our district council people or their staffers on the call that have any updates? Going once. All right, well, with that, I want to thank everybody for being part of this today. I especially want to thank Commissioner Perry, Elizabeth Baldwin, Michael Shorr. It was very informative, and I think with all the confusion going on, I think the information you gave was very critical. So I want to thank you all for your time. Just some brief updates from the Fishtown district. We have 2 virtual meetings scheduled. Next Thursday, we're having a networking meeting where we invite all of our stakeholders to kind of get together, share their experiences of how they're getting through COVID-19, promotions that they're doing, and see how we can work together to do that. And also on March 18th, I want to thank my colleague Mike Harris for the idea at 11 o'clock. We have John Longstreth, CEO and president of the Pennsylvania Restaurant and Lodging Association, who will be able to give us updates of, you know, certainly things that are coming regarding how changes in Harrisburg and locally for our restaurants and taverns reopening. We are certainly working, some of my colleagues and I, on and with the commissioner's help, some outdoor seating ideas to help when reopening can commence. Kay Anderson, our Director of Operations, you have anything you want to share before we conclude?
Nope, I'm good.
Thank you. Randy Sherwood, our Office Manager, Marketing Director, do you want to talk about whether the videos we're asking for people to submit or the networking event? Or Mother's Day?
Sure. Yes, we have a lot of stuff going on. Be sure to check our social media. Obviously, check our emails. If you're not currently on our email list, go to our website and register to be on it. We have a lot of information. We have some Mother's Day plans going on about sending meals to mom from different places within Fishtown. We also have our 5 for Fishtown still going, where you can order gift cards, different things. So be sure to go ahead and do those. We have a stakeholders meeting where we're just giving everybody an opportunity on Thursday to just talk to one another about, what they're doing, how their business has changed, what they're doing about unemployment, questions about the Paycheck Protection Program, different things that, you may not know how others are dealing with it. So we wanted to give everybody an opportunity to share that. And then coming up, starting on Fridays in the next couple weeks, we're going to have Fishtown Fridays. And this is probably something we'll continue to do even after everything opens up, where we're going to feature different businesses. We're going to do like 2 to 3 minute videos for each of the businesses, where you can show your website, how to order online, show your store, what it is that you sell, different things that make your business unique. And we're asking everybody to go ahead and create those 2 to 3 minute videos. So just be on the lookout for that information, like I said, via email or social media.
Thanks, Randy. And lastly, we've been doing a Fishtown Heroes meal program where we've encouraged everyone to order meals for those that have put themselves on the front lines. We've been doing it for the 26th Police District. That's how we started it. And obviously, we're asking people to get meals from our Fishtown eatery, so we're helping them. The Police District one went so well that they asked us to stop because they got so much food. We've now expanded that to do for Lutheran Settlement House, and we just launched this week the Temple University Hospital COVID-19 unit. So we encourage people, go to our website, go to our social media. If you're on our email list, you've been getting the links, please participate in that. It's our ways to thank those that are helping and also reward our Fishtown eateries and help them have some money coming in. With that, I'm going to conclude. Thank you, everyone, for being part of it today, and have a great weekend. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Yep.